What are you doing out here?
Just checking a message, sir. Anything wrong?
You loitering? This place was closed 10 minutes ago.
I'm the chef here. See the name? Keys to the building. I'm locking up.
Step over by the car.
For what? I'm on my sidewalk at my job. Let's go.
I don't want trouble.
Neither do I. I just cooked for 100 people and cleaned the line. Now I'm trying to go home. That's it.
Officer Derek Ramsey had been with the Miami Police Department for 6 years when he made a decision that would end his career and cost the city $720,000. He was 31 years old, patrolling the upscale Brickell neighborhood, and absolutely convinced that the black man standing outside a high-end restaurant at midnight couldn't possibly work there, much less own the place. One Friday night in Miami's financial district, a concerned resident called the non-emergency line reporting a suspicious person loitering outside Meridian, one of the area's most acclaimed restaurants. The person was Chef Antoine Bouchard, a 39-year-old James Beard Award nominee who'd spent the last 14 years building his culinary reputation and the past 3 years running his own establishment. Despite Bouchard explaining he was closing up his restaurant, despite his keys visible in his hand, despite his chef's coat bearing the restaurant's emblem, Ramsey arrested him on the sidewalk outside his own front door. The decision would cost Miami taxpayers $750,000, destroy Ramsey's law enforcement career, and demonstrate that even success and achievement offer no protection when assumptions override evidence. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Meridian sits on Brickell Avenue in the heart of Miami's financial district. The restaurant occupies a corner location with floor-to-ceiling windows, Edison bulb chandeliers, and an open kitchen where diners can watch chefs work. The space seats 75 with white tablecloths, minimalist decor, and a carefully curated wine list. Dinner reservations book weeks in advance. The tasting menu costs $180 per person. Food critics from New York and Los Angeles make special trips to review it. This is the kind of restaurant that defines a neighborhood's dining scene, the place where deals get made over seared scallops and dry-aged ribeye, where anniversaries are celebrated with champagne and caviar, where the food is art and the prices reflect it. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Friday in October. The last dinner service had ended at 10:30. The final table had paid and left by 11:15. The dining room was empty, chairs upturned on tables, floors mopped and gleaming. The kitchen had been cleaned, equipment shut down, walk-in coolers locked. The staff had clocked out and gone home. Antoine Bouchard had been a chef for 14 years. 14 years of brutal kitchen hours, learning techniques from masters, perfecting his craft through repetition and innovation, working his way up from line cook to sous chef to executive chef. He'd trained in Lyon, France for 2 years after culinary school. He'd worked at Michelin-starred restaurants in Chicago and San Francisco. He'd competed on cooking shows, won awards, earned recognition from James Beard Foundation judges. 3 years ago, at 36, he'd taken the biggest risk of his life. He'd left his executive chef position at a prestigious Chicago restaurant, moved to Miami, found investors, and opened Meridian. His own place, his vision, his menu, his reputation on the line every single night. The first year had been terrifying. Learning the business side, managing staff, controlling costs, marketing, dealing with critics. The pressure was immense. One bad review could empty the dining room. One health code violation could destroy everything. But Bouchard had succeeded. By year 2, Meridian was booked solid. By year 3, it was on every best restaurants in Miami list. Food writers praised his innovative approach to new American cuisine. Investors saw returns. His staff was loyal and well-trained. He'd built something real, something sustainable, something he was genuinely proud of. That Friday night had been typical. Busy dinner service, full dining room, everything running smoothly. Bouchard had worked the line alongside his team, plating dishes, checking quality, ensuring every plate that left the kitchen met his standards. After service ended, he'd done what he always did. Supervised the breakdown, checked that cleaning was done properly, locked up the kitchen, and walked through the dining room one final time. He wore his white chef's coat with Meridian embroidered on the chest and his name stitched below it. Black pants, professional kitchen clogs, a kitchen towel tucked into his apron strings. His restaurant keys were in his hand. His phone was in his pocket. He was exhausted from a 14-hour shift and ready to go home. He stepped outside, locked the front door behind him, and paused on the sidewalk to check his phone for messages. Just a chef, outside his own restaurant, ending another successful night. But someone watching from across the street didn't see a successful business owner. They saw a black man in work clothes outside an expensive restaurant late at night, and they decided that required police intervention. Do you think residents should face consequences for calling police without evidence of actual criminal activity? Drop your answer below. Derek Ramsey had been with Miami PD for 6 years. In that time, he'd accumulated a record that should have triggered serious supervisory attention. 9 formal complaints. 7 involving allegations that he'd stopped or questioned people of color in affluent areas without reasonable suspicion. A black teenager walking through a shopping plaza. Ramsey had detained him for 20 minutes, demanding to know where he was going. The teen's mother worked at one of the stores. Complaint filed, closed as unfounded. A Hispanic couple photographing architecture in the financial district. Ramsey questioned whether they had permits, suggested they were conducting surveillance. They were tourists. Complaint filed, resolved with counseling notation. An Asian businessman entering a luxury car. Dealership. Ramsey followed him inside, asked staff if they needed assistance with a potential problem. The man was a cash buyer looking at a $90,000 vehicle. Complaint filed, dismissed after Ramsey completed bias awareness training. The pattern was obvious to anyone looking. Ramsey saw people of color in wealthy, predominantly white spaces and assumed they didn't belong. He interpreted their presence as inherently suspicious, requiring investigation, potential intervention. 6 of his 9 complaints had been designated as requiring additional training. 3 had been sustained with written reprimands. But somehow Ramsey remained on patrol in Brickell, one of Miami's most affluent neighborhoods, where his biases created a constant risk. When the call came in that night, Ramsey was 3 blocks away. Suspicious person outside Meridian Restaurant on Brickell Avenue. Appears to be loitering, possible attempted break-in. In Ramsey's mind, this fit a clear pattern. Late night, high-end restaurant. Suspicious person. This was exactly the kind of proactive policing that prevented crime. He arrived at 11:52 p.m., pulling his patrol car to the curb 20 feet from where Bouchard stood. Bouchard was still checking his phone, scrolling through a message from his sous chef about tomorrow's seafood delivery. Ramsey exited his vehicle and approached, hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. His body camera was recording. Everything that followed would be documented. Bouchard looked up when he heard footsteps. He saw the uniform, the aggressive posture, and immediately recognized the situation he was in. He'd been black in America for 39 years. He knew how these encounters could unfold. He lowered his phone slowly, kept his hands visible, and waited. "What are you doing here?" Ramsey's voice was sharp, confrontational. Bouchard kept his tone calm, measured. "Just leaving work. I'm the chef here." "Chef, huh? At midnight? Restaurant's close at some point. We closed at 10:30. I've been cleaning up and locking down." Ramsey's eyes scanned Bouchard from head to toe. The chef's coat, the work pants, the clogs. To an unbiased observer, these were obviously professional kitchen clothes. To Ramsey, they were just clothing that anyone could wear. "Got any ID?" Bouchard reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He extracted his Florida driver's license and held it out. "Officer, my name is Antoine Bouchard. I own this restaurant. I was just locking up for the night." Ramsey took the license, glanced at it, handed it back. "That doesn't prove you own the restaurant. Could be anyone's ID." Bouchard felt the familiar exhaustion that comes with having to prove your legitimacy in spaces you've earned. "Look, my name is embroidered on my coat. The restaurant name is right there. I have my keys in my hand. You can see the alarm panel inside is armed. I just said it. Anyone can get a coat embroidered. Anyone can have keys. Maybe you stole them. This is where bias becomes immovable." Officer Ramsey had responded to a call about a suspicious person outside an upscale restaurant. When he arrived, he saw a black man outside an upscale restaurant. In his mind, that confirmed the complaint. Every piece of evidence after that was filtered through his initial assumption. Should officers be required to verify business ownership before detaining people outside their own establishments? Let me know what you think. "Officer Ramsey," Bouchard said, keeping his voice steady, "I'm not doing anything illegal. I work here. I own this place. If you don't believe me, there's a website with my photo and bio." There are reviews mentioning me by name. There's a business license inside with my name on it. You can verify all of this in 2 minutes. Ramsey's jaw tightened. I don't need you telling me how to do my job. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Bouchard's stomach dropped. For what? What crime am I committing? Trespassing, suspicious activity, refusing to cooperate. I showed you my ID. I explained I own the restaurant. I'm cooperating completely. There's no legal basis to detain me. I said, turn around. Bouchard looked down the empty street. No witnesses, no cameras except the one on Ramsey's chest. He made a decision. I'm not resisting, Bouchard said loudly, making sure the body camera audio caught every word. I'm complying under protest. I am Antoine Bouchard, owner and executive chef of Meridian Restaurant. I was closing my business when this officer approached me. I've committed no crime. I've shown identification. This is harassment and racial profiling. He turned slowly, placing his hands behind his back. Ramsey grabbed his wrists roughly and snapped handcuffs on tighter than necessary. The metal bit into Bouchard's skin. You're under arrest for loitering and obstruction. I wasn't loitering. I was leaving my own restaurant. And I didn't obstruct anything. Ramsey marched him toward the patrol car. As they walked, Bouchard noticed a woman across the street, phone raised, recording. A late-night dog walker who'd witnessed the entire interaction. Ramsey opened the back door of the cruiser and guided Bouchard inside. The chef sat in the back seat, handcuffed, watching his restaurant recede from view as Ramsey drove toward the station. Why do some officers see successful black business owners and assume they must be criminals? Comment your thoughts. The drive took 11 minutes. Bouchard spent it thinking about everything he'd worked for. 14 years in professional kitchens, 3 years building Meridian. Awards, recognition, respect in the culinary community. And now he was in handcuffs because a cop couldn't imagine a black man owning a high-end restaurant. They arrived at the station. Ramsey walked Bouchard inside, still cuffed, past the booking desk where a sergeant looked up. Ramsey, what have you got? Trespassing suspect. Found him loitering outside Meridian on Brickell at midnight. The sergeant, Linda Vasquez, stood up. A 22-year veteran who'd seen every kind of bad arrest. Meridian? That fancy French place? New American, Bouchard corrected quietly. And I own it. Vasquez's eyes narrowed. She looked at Bouchard's chef's coat, at the embroidery clearly visible, at the quality of the garment. She looked at Ramsey. Did you verify he works there before you cuffed him? He claims he owns it. I don't buy it. That's not what I asked. Did you verify? Bouchard spoke clearly. Sergeant Vasquez, I'm Chef Antoine Bouchard. I own Meridian. I've owned it for 3 years. I was closing up after dinner service when Officer Ramsey approached me on the sidewalk. I showed him my ID. I explained I own the restaurant. My name is on my chef's coat. I had my keys. He arrested me anyway. Vasquez picked up her phone. She called the restaurant's listed business number, got the voicemail greeting. You've reached Meridian. For reservations, please call during business hours. For Chef Bouchard. She hung up and Googled the restaurant. The website loaded. Featured prominently on the About page was a professional photo of Antoine Bouchard in his chef's coat. The exact same coat he was wearing now, with a detailed biography describing his training, experience, and awards. She turned to Ramsey, her voice cold. You arrested the owner. Outside his own restaurant. After he identified himself. After he showed you his ID. After he explained he was closing up. He was loitering at midnight. He was leaving his own business. And you didn't verify before you cuffed him. Vasquez walked around the desk and unlocked Bouchard's handcuffs herself. Chef Bouchard, I apologize. This should never have happened. Bouchard rubbed his wrists, red marks visible where the metal had pressed into skin. I want the body camera footage. I want the 911 call recording. I want to know who called this in. And I want to speak with whoever supervises Officer Ramsey. A captain arrived within minutes. Robert Chen, a 19-year veteran with a reputation for holding officers accountable. Chef Bouchard, I'm Captain Chen. What happened tonight is unacceptable. Bouchard's voice was controlled but hard. Captain, I own a restaurant that grosses over $2 million annually. I employ 17 people. I've been nominated for a James Beard Award. I pay property taxes, business taxes, sales taxes. I'm a contributing member of this community. And I was arrested on the sidewalk outside my own establishment because Officer Ramsey decided I looked suspicious. Chen turned to Ramsey. Badge and weapon. Administrative leave. Now! Captain, I was responding to a call. You arrested a business owner without verifying basic facts. You ignored evidence. You cuffed a man outside his own restaurant. Give me your badge. Ramsey handed them over, his face pale. Should officers face automatic termination for arresting business owners without verification? Drop your answer. Within hours, the video from the dog walker had gone viral. The footage showed everything. Ramsey approaching aggressively. Bouchard calmly explaining, his chef's coat clearly visible, his keys in his hand, the handcuffs, the arrest. Chef arrested outside own restaurant in Miami. James Beard nominee handcuffed while closing his business. Miami cop arrests restaurant owner, ignores chef's coat and keys. Officer claims black chef doesn't look like he owns upscale eatery. The culinary community responded immediately. Fellow chefs posted in solidarity. The James Beard Foundation issued a statement condemning racial profiling. Food writers called for accountability. Meridian's regular customers expressed outrage. The lawsuit named Officer Derek Ramsey, Sergeant Linda Vasquez for supervisory failure, and Miami Police Department. The claims were comprehensive. Unlawful arrest without probable cause, false imprisonment, violation of civil rights, racial profiling and discrimination, excessive use of force and handcuffing, intentional infliction of emotional distress, failure to verify readily available information, failure to train and supervise officers with documented patterns of discriminatory behavior. The evidence was overwhelming. Body camera footage captured Ramsey ignoring Bouchard's explanations. The chef's coat with embroidered identification was visible on video. Civilian footage corroborated every detail. Business records proved ownership. Restaurant websites, reviews, and awards confirmed Bouchard's identity and position. Miami city attorneys reviewed the case and reached an inevitable conclusion: completely indefensible. The city settled 14 months later. $720,000 paid to Antoine Bouchard. Officer Derek Ramsey was terminated 7 weeks after the incident. The termination letter was unambiguous. Officer Ramsey arrested a business owner outside his own establishment without probable cause. He ignored clear identifying information on the individual's professional clothing. He failed to verify easily accessible business ownership records. He demonstrated a pattern of discriminatory policing documented through 9 prior complaints. His employment is terminated immediately. Ramsey's name entered the National Decertification Index. His law enforcement career ended at 31. Ramsey released a brief statement through his attorney. I made serious errors in judgment and failed to verify information that would have prevented this incident. I accept responsibility and apologize to Chef Bouchard, but apologies don't undo trauma or restore dignity. Should police departments face federal oversight after repeated failures to discipline officers with multiple bias complaints? Let me know in the comments. Miami PD faced intense scrutiny. 9 complaints over 6 years, 7 involving people of color, 6 requiring training, 3 sustained. How had Ramsey remained on patrol? Why hadn't supervisors removed him after the 4th complaint? The 6th? The 8th? Internal Affairs conducted a comprehensive review. Their findings revealed systemic failures. Complaints tracked individually but never analyzed for patterns. Training requirements assigned but never assessed for effectiveness. Sustained complaints resulting in written reprimands that changed nothing. Supervisors noting concerns in evaluations but taking no action to remove problematic officers from street duty. The Department of Justice opened a civil rights investigation. Their findings confirmed what advocates had argued for years. The department prioritized keeping officers on patrol over protecting community members from discrimination. Reforms were announced. Automatic desk duty for officers with 5 or more complaints related to discrimination. Mandatory business verification before trespass arrests. Real-time body camera review for all arrests. Independent oversight with subpoena power. Quarterly analysis of officer stops, flagging racial disparities. Chef Antoine Bouchard testified at city commission hearings. His testimony was powerful. I'm a chef. I've dedicated my adult life to my craft. I trained in France. I've worked in Michelin-starred kitchens. I took enormous financial risk to open my own restaurant. I've succeeded by every measure: awards, reviews, profitability, community standing. And I was arrested outside my own front door because Officer Ramsey saw a black man in a chef's coat and decided I couldn't possibly belong there. He paused, letting that sink in. My name was embroidered on my clothing. My keys were in my hand. My ID was in my wallet. The restaurant's website has my photo. Google would have verified everything in 30 seconds. None of that mattered because Ramsey had already decided what he was looking at. Another pause. If this can happen to me with all my success and documentation and visibility in this community, what happens to every other black business owner who gets profiled? Who don't have awards or media coverage or resources to fight back? The room was silent. This isn't about one officer. This is about 9 complaints that never triggered meaningful intervention. This is about a system that let Ramsey keep patrolling, despite clear evidence he couldn't do the job without bias. Why do some officers interpret professional clothing and business ownership as impossible for people of color? Comment your thoughts. This wasn't just a wrongful arrest. This was proof that achievement offers no protection from assumptions rooted in racism. Antoine Bouchard had his chef's coat with his name embroidered on it. He had his restaurant keys. He had his driver's license. He had a business website featuring his photo. He had 3 years of ownership, 14 years of culinary experience, awards, and recognition. None of it mattered because Derek Ramsey saw a black man outside an upscale restaurant and couldn't imagine he might legitimately own it. The chef's coat had to be stolen or fake. The keys had to be illicit. The explanations had to be lies. Ramsey's bias was so complete, it overrode physical evidence he could see and touch. This is how racism operates in commercial spaces. It's the assumption that black people don't own high-end businesses. It's seeing someone in professional clothing and assuming it's a costume. It's encountering success and achievement in black people and deciding it must be fraudulent. Derek Ramsey's career is over. That's justice. The city paid $720,000. That's accountability. But money doesn't undo the humiliation of being handcuffed on the sidewalk outside the business you built. It doesn't erase the knowledge that your accomplishments weren't enough to prevent being treated like a criminal. The real question is, what changes now? Do departments finally remove officers after 5 discrimination complaints instead of 9? Do they teach cops to verify before detaining? Do we finally acknowledge that black people own businesses, win awards, achieve success, and deserve basic respect? Because if we don't fix the system that kept Ramsey on patrol through 9 complaints, if we don't address the culture that taught him to see black business owners as impossible, then we're just waiting for the next officer, the next victim, the next successful person criminalized outside their own establishment. Comment if you believe this should be law. Officers who arrest business owners without verifying ownership face immediate termination and permanent decertification. And if you think these stories need to be told, hit that subscribe button. We're exposing these patterns. We're demanding better. We're fighting for chefs, entrepreneurs, business owners who deserve to close up their own restaurants without being criminalized. This isn't just about one officer or one chef. It's about all of us in the world we're willing to accept.